Ladies and gentlemen, hello again and welcome back to Don't Worry About the Government. My name is Chris Novembrino. It is Sunday morning, and you know what that means. It means Meet Depressed. And joining me here today on Meet Depressed is Dan Carpenter and Robert. How you doing today here, guys? Welcome to the panel show.
Doing well, Chris.
Doing good. Thanks for
Doing
having
good.
me.
Doing good. No, that's great. That's great. I'm glad to have you all here. So a lot of news this week. I mean, honestly, there is more news than I have been able to keep up with, to my chagrin. Like I keep saying I need to do this world news episode, and I say it, and then I basically just linger and feel guilty about it and don't ever get around to it. And this is yet another episode where we are not getting around to much world news. It's basically, well, okay, I got like the planet is dying, but like there are countries around the world that I like to talk about. Like we're once again doing America and then space in the world, and not a lot of other countries in the world. That gap continues to linger. But you guys want to get into these headlines here?
Absolutely.
All right, so we are currently in the midst of a sizable coronavirus spike after what had been a June of good news. And by good news, I mean the coronavirus levels in the United States had gotten down to what I would consider to be an acceptable level of risk really at any given time, which is about 10,000 cases. Um, Look, there are probably 10,000 cases of any number of different diseases floating around the United States at any given point. That there's only a tracker. You only know how to find a tracker for one of them. It's not like you're sitting around and tracking the flu, and tracking some of these other things. So 10,000, not bad, not bad. Since the end of June, and July 4th weekend, we have arrived back at a point now where we have well over 50,000 cases a day. And the Delta variant has proven to be fairly effective, in combating some of the vaccine's immunization effects. The vaccine is only about, by the vaccine, I mean like the Pfizer and Moderna one-shot vaccines. I'm not so sure about the J&J, or I'm sorry, those are the two shots. I'm not so sure about the J&J. But the two-shot vaccines seem to be in the 60s, percentage-wise, in terms of efficacy against the Delta variant. So obviously much better than no protection whatsoever. But also, now we are a little bit in a race to update the vaccine and keep the vaccines current as well. In addition to a race to deal with the issues that are arising from this new spread of the coronavirus. And then the biggest issue here is a breaking of public will. Public will to wear masks. Public will. I mean, obviously, we're talking a lot about vaccine, but let talk about the vaccine, especially for our side, is a little bit easy. I think what's a little bit harder is talking about masks. And a lot of people, even on our side of the wall, they're not wearing masks now. And getting people to go back to a wearing mask culture, I think, is going to be extraordinarily hard.
Absolutely. The people are definitely tired of the masks, and they're also, I mean, there's also a there's a financial incentive. There's an economic there's been economic pressure put on to return to work, to return to normalcy. And I think people are really gonna be wanting to put their fingers in their ears and la 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 through anything that's disrupting that at this point. Like it's tough to hear after a year and a half of dealing with this.
You know,
Yeah.
one of the things that I'm seeing is the Biden administration has really been pushing for a I did it, we did well, we're going back to normal, pushing for schools to open, pushing for a return to normalcy before we're at, the vaccine levels that will actually make normalcy real. So that's connecting with a lot of Democrats, and they don't like the masks are no fun, and so suddenly it's just like, okay, we're just going to pretend it's all over.
All right, there will be a quote from July 4th weekend that I don't think will necessarily have political resonance. It won't be remembered in the history books, but it was something from either Jill or Joe Biden, where I think it was Jill who was like, "Isn't it so nice to have your mask off?" Essentially, she basically said what you just said, Robert, which is, "Aren't these masks no fun? Isn't it nice to be in a mask or overtime now?" And obviously that was bad when Trump was saying it, or when Trump refused to wear a mask. I mean, like, Trump refused to even wear a mask. Like, let us never forget that. But now that that is also getting messaged to rank and file Democrats, it only further affirms what Republicans already believe about masks, and maybe further affirms that maybe Trump and their guys were right about masks all along. And now it's sort of telling to Democrats, COVID is over. When we just had the numbers up here on the video feed, for those who support over at patreon.com/DWATG, we had 45,000 cases as a 7-day average this week, and 63,000 cases here on Sunday, with the trend line moving up over the week. Dan and I were talking before the show. I'll let you get back into this, but how essentially you kind of backtrack. I've been mentally backtracking how I feel about the numbers and trying to put them in context of last year, because it's the only way I can really understand these COVID levels.
Well, I mean, acutely here in Sonoma County, we've been just as every progressive week that's gone on, we were at 50 an average of 50 hospitalizations a week, over 50 hospitalizations over a 5-day average, which was where we were at just after the vaccine started to be introduced to people below 65. And now we're back. Now we're at, I believe, up to almost 60 cases, which is there's 500,000 people in this county. Like, that's not it's a very affluent county. It's not, but it mirrors the same trend. It's the shape of the line is exactly the same. It's not just happening in these, like, all these ignorant redneck areas or these ignorant Republican areas. Like, Sonoma County is about as affluent and progressive a county like as you could get in the country. It's not especially urban. It has both urban aspects, but it's also farm country. It's wine country. Like, it's very outdoors. Like, it is it's not necessarily someplace that you would like if it was just the damn unvaccinateds not doing their thing. Like, we're over 60% here in the county. Like,
well, I think in some case we're fighting with each other when it, like, maybe we're just not giving the virus enough credit for starters here. Like maybe this mutation's like fairly legit, and COVID out there doing the work, doing that hard work of mutating, changing yourself. It's so hard to change. COVID's out there doing it all the time.
That's, I mean, oh, go ahead.
What I think is happening is the vaccinated people are getting it at a higher rate, but they're not dying as much. But what they are doing is passing it around.
I mean, that's another interesting thing. So, like, hospitalization rates, that's one thing the vaccine seems to have been very good at, is even if you get it, your odds of going to the hospital are much lower. Like, so this is just going to be an ass kicker at home.
It's only 2.5% of hospitalizations are from breakthrough cases, which I mean is still kind of 2.5%. Like, when you're dealing at like a population level, is still a scary number. Like, it's not a negligible thing, but it's not like half. You're not rolling the dice necessarily.
Yeah, but it's something like 3 million Americans.
Yes, absolutely. That's when you're dealing with that large of a number. Like, it's a lot of lives.
It's more that the vaccine gives your body a fighting chance to fight COVID. So, like, I mean, how many stories have we seen over the last month of, like, these people who are in the hospital getting intubated, either all of a sudden want the vaccine or still don't want the vaccine at this late a date or whatever. And the doctor has to tell them it's too late. And I've now I'm like thinking maybe a better way of understanding the vaccine for the unvaccinated is like, look, you want to give your immune system the best chance to fight off COVID-19 because you think your immune system's strong enough to beat this thing. It might be, but it also might not be. And it also might land in the middle where you win, but it's like Antietam. It kicks your ass along the way.
Well, that's right now, a lot of the statistic around 70%, like pushing for 70% of Americans to be vaccinated. That is Americans that are eligible to be vaccinated. That is
Yes,
not taking,
adults.
taking into account the entire population of children. And for me, the terrifying thing about COVID, something that made me very, very compliant with all the orders, made me want to get vaccinated right away, is the possibility of the, like, yeah, you beat COVID, but now you're on dialysis, or like you need to take medication for your heart for the rest of your life. And like those are outcomes that could affect people like teenagers. And yeah,
No,
the pushing for schools to be like that. This is the Biden push for like normalizing schooling is one of the things that has that I have been the most against. I don't have kids. I'm not trying to get them out of the house, but it just seems like it feels performative in its like it's trying to give people a sense of normalcy, but like you can't just force that shit. Like it's not
well, yeah, one of the things that Trump's done that Biden hasn't tried to overturn is just like this reality distortion effect where I can say it and make people think it's true. I can say we've beat COVID and my base will believe it and just go that way when that's not where we are. I mean, he's also like dragged, vaccination for students, like that conversation has changed where it used to be, no, everyone understood that you could force children to get their vaccines if they were going to go to public school. And the Biden administration has done absolutely nothing to challenge that norm that Trump created.
I mean, as I look back over the last month now, and we have some distance from the July 4th deadline that the Biden administration arbitrarily set for themselves. On one hand, I want to not exonerate, but sort of forgive some optimistic thinking among the Biden White House, looking at the numbers going into late May, even into the early weeks of June. I mean, again, you look at the numbers under 20,000. I don't know. Like at a certain point, like you do want to go like, maybe we got a handle on this thing. But I think forever look back at the arbitrary nature of the July 4th deadline and just deciding that we needed to have a July 4th deadline to celebrate our Independence Day from COVID as a complete and total mistake, especially with the intention of reopening schools here. The vaccine and the vaccination rate among kids is not where it needs to be. And if you're really all in on reopening schools, I think it needs to be safety summer rather than normalcy summer. And that was where Biden's big mistake was. But I think that this July 4th deadline, certifiably a mistake, especially if you're not going to go all in on maximizing incentives to get people vaccinated.
Well,
And
not just incentive, but if you want to go all in on opening schools, you have to force children to be vaccinated to go. Otherwise, bad stuff's going to happen. Like
gotta have sticks and carrots. I agree that look, I'm not saying there should be no sticks. I am saying that the Biden administration and largely speaking, like left policy thinking about the carrots part of how do we get more people vaccinated has been a big problem. It's all been about sticks. It's you can't go to school. You're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to do that. And meanwhile, the Republicans get to play the good guy and they're like, hey, we're not going to allow you to get discriminated against for not wearing a mask, especially if you've already been vaccinated.
I think the one carrot that they actually grabbed onto of if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask was one of the worst that they could have done, because even as we vaccinated out the population, we still needed like 1 or 2 incubation periods of the virus, of like you needed it to be wide enough and people to be masked for long enough. Like we had the goal of 70% being July 4th, and California opened everything up 2 weeks before that, like got rid of their mask mandate for anybody who was vaccinated before that. And so it was like we were so close to like this this flattening out could have been much more effective had we just kept the masks going a little bit longer while we kept it going. But the one incentive they gave is if you're masked, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask anymore, without any way of actually enforcing who.
And I want to be clear about
who's
that.
vaxxed
That's
versus who's
no
masked.
more sticking. That's not
Yes.
that's not even a carrot. That is, we're not hitting you with the stick anymore.
I guess.
And that's the other part of this. So, and the other big problem, as you were getting into, and I sort of stepped on you, is the issue then becomes, how do you possibly know who isn't enforced, who doesn't get mask passes? And the idea that you were going to dump this all back on Tom Thumb and Kroger and Albertsons and all these grocery stores to have like a door guy to regulate everyone's vaccine cards, or, because the state doesn't want to do its job, or nudge people to go and get vaccine, or incentivize people to go and get vaccine. I think the lottery system's a little gross, but I'd rather that, because at least the lottery system's the potential of a carrot than no more sticking.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would have loved more financial incentives for everybody. I mean, here in California, I was automatically entered in a lottery that had all kinds of levels of prizes and incentives, but there's 10 million people, so I don't. It's pretty diffuse. I would have loved $100 for everybody who did it, rather than like 10 people getting 40 grand.
And I say that number for $100 for every American. People are like, oh my God. I'm like, all right, let's wind this back, y'all. There have been stimulus checks that have been going out like the last year. Like, this is not like an obscene, unheard of thing. I had somebody go, well, Chris, if you give $100 to every American, you're infantilizing them for doing something that they already ought to be doing. And my response to this person, but my response to this person was, well, if they were not children, they would be going and getting the vaccine. So like, maybe I'm meeting these people where they're at.
It's like,
yeah, right. Yeah, like I'm not trying, to your point, I'm not trying to change them. I'm no longer trying to like sneer down my nose and be like, you're so stupid. Why can't you read the science? Not that I was before. Like, why don't you get it? I'm like, here's $100. If you want to go and lie to your buddies at the bar afterwards and talk about how bad Obama is and how much you hate his vaccine afterwards, that's fine. Go ahead. Here's $100 though. If you want $100 for beer money tonight, I mean, the vaccine's right down in the corner, and they say it's pretty safe. Like everyone else seems to be doing it, getting beer money. Like that's what I want to do. I want to let them quietly do the right thing. It's not about me embarrassing them. It's not about me having the evangelical, I've been saved by liberalism moment. Like I just want them to just go and get the fucking shot.
Yeah.
Goo goo gaga, here's your lolly. Like,
and the cost on this. The other thing is people, oh, it's going to cost so much. The cost on this, 350 million people times 100. Y'all do the math. If it was 350 billion, it's not. It's 35 billion. And even if it was 350 billion, it's still not that expensive of a government program. And oh, by the way, given the way we understand stimulus economics, it's essentially another form of micro stimulus, and this is the perfect sort of stimulus that's guaranteed to go back into disposable income and support places like bars, movie theaters, and other places that it is all the disposable income places that will actually get hit with this, rather than landlords and that sort of thing. It's your local bar. Like when I'm joking about the guy going down to his local bar, I'm not really joking. The guy's not taking $100. He might give it to his phone bill. He might give it to his cable company, but he's just as likely to get the $100 and then go and get a drink because he has the day off because he's getting the vaccine.
Yeah, I would go further and say make it 500 for the first shot and 500 for the second shot. I mean, the responsibility goes really well with freedom, and people people who don't want to go get it, it's like, okay, fine, if you don't want to behave responsibly, then, well, here's some carrots and sticks, and I don't really feel bad about that.
Well, there is like limited chatter about another round of stimulus checks. And one thing I am sort of in favor of that's carrot plus stick is, well, if you want your next stimulus check, they will be available at the vaccine pickup point. And if you're already vaccinated, just show your card, you'll get your stimulus. If you're already vaccinated, we'll send you your check. But if you're not already vaccinated, they'll be available at the vaccine like point. And if you really don't want to get vaccinated, there's a third very arduous process for you to go through, but you can go through it. But I'm fine with having like the pickup point for the next stimulus check be at the vaccination site.
Can you imagine all the people who don't want to tell their friends get that they got vaccinated, all like go on the same day and see all of their friends who also want to lie about it at the same time?
And then their friends are like, so wait, you didn't want the $1,200 stimulus? And the guy's like, I have my principles, damn it. I joke, but when we are talking about changing the tune of some of these people, I don't think it's about I don't think it's about all of us being nicer. I don't think it's about the media being nicer. I think it's good, frankly, that the media is showing. I'm not trying to laugh at these people, and I do hate it when people laugh at these people who die in the hospital rooms because they didn't want to get the vaccine. But I think it's actually good and instructive in the same way that showing the bodies during the Iraq War was a good and instructive exercise for understanding the realities of the war. I think showing the hospital rooms of the people who stubbornly do not want to understand what is going on is good and sobering and contextualizing. It's not pleasant. We shouldn't be tap dancing any more than you should be tap dancing when you see dead soldiers' coffins getting filed off the plane. But you should look at it and solemnly recognize, like, yeah, okay, this is fucking real. Like, I got to take this seriously. I think it's good and clarifying to have that. But I just don't think it's like, I mean, even these doctors aren't reaching these people. I tend to think in a lot of ways, it's not about reasoning. It's about persuading, and persuasion can be done through force and, that sort of thing, and cajoling. But like, also, bribing tends to be a pretty effective form of persuasion, and maybe it's like less about words and more about green.
Well, I think another piece of it is they have to be personally affected when they know someone who got a serious case and is a lifelong disability, or they know someone who's died, then now it's a real thing. But until then,
yes. Yeah, I will say that a cleavage point inside of Republicans that I have seen are the people who have been personally affected by COVID-19 and the people who have not been personally affected by COVID-19, who are very philosophically and dogmatically committed to, like, I'd rather have a dangerous freedom. And I'd rather have a dangerous freedom sounds monstrous to the 62-year-old woman who lost her friend who was 68 to after a lengthy battle with COVID-19, and it was a lifelong friend. Like, the cost of dangerous freedom to that 62-year-old woman is, now I have to live out the rest of my years without my best friend, and I thought we had 10 more good years left at least.
Well, yeah, if it's a dangerous freedom for myself, it's one thing. If it's a dangerous freedom for your family, that starts to look really different.
We went through a year and a half where a lot of these people, in spite of them feeling victimized by the lockdowns, like they were protected by the economy being shut down to the degree that it was. They were protected by all of the people who were being compliant, all of the people who readjusted their lives for COVID-19. And now that things are reopening, it's spreading. Those protections that they hated, that they resented, that felt so oppressive to them are gone, and the virus has spread everywhere. And so, like, they're not protected by isolation. They're not protected because they're in a rural community. Like the delivery driver coming into town, like, is going from every place. Those protections are now gone. And so I think that we're going to talk about it probably a little bit later with Hannity and stuff, but I think that that's been doing some of the tune changing. What little tune changing has happened around some of these issues.
Yeah, and before we get into Hannity, I mean, I want to stop there real quick and like exonerate all of us. A fun exercise. I do love a good I'm not the bad guy here sort of moment. But like, let us ruminate on that point here, dear listeners, that all of us, and I know this because like I haven't talked to an anti-masker who listens to the show here. Like I know everyone's like on the trolley here with this shit. We have all been in various ways making sacrifices to try to get back to normalcy, a heartfelt and desired normalcy. Like I like teaching music to young children and young adults and developing young musicians. And it's important to me to be able to do that safely. And while the last year has been really good and me getting better at teaching remotely and like actually adding a different element into my career skill set, like there's a real joy of bringing my bass with the drum machine over, going into the studio and jamming with a kid on some Ramones songs. Like we were doing Now I Want to Smith Some Glue the other day and Chainsaw the other day, and like in the room and really rocking out. It rules. I love playing at parties and entertaining people. Parties where there's open food and there's a whiskey bar and a cigar bar there. Like where people are having a good time and being entertained and stuff. Like we've all been making these sacrifices because we all earnestly want society to be reopened. And when you read like Michael Brendan Dougherty's National Review piece, or you listen to some of these conservatives, like when they don't even believe us when we tell them that we want society reopened just like they do, and that we're doing our best, and we really earnestly believe that masking up, getting the vaccine, cleaning regularly, having social distancing, risk mitigation is the way for us to continue forward, and that we should be conservative in our approach to how much interaction we're having with each other, rather than being liberal and absolutely risk averse, because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Fundamentally, for maybe the first time in all of our lives as libs and lefties or whatever, we've really embraced something deeply conservative in our mindset. We stay in, we wear masks, we do risk mitigation. And there's been no reward. The pro-life crowd, the people who've been telling us their whole lives that every life is sacred, that they all matter, everyone matters, and that's why we have to force them all to be brought onto the planet. They also are just as quickly willing to let grandma die and embrace the title of grandma killer semi-ironically and like put it on their Twitter profiles and stuff.
They're real into bodily autonomy now.
Right. I mean,
my body, my choice.
Right.
Yeah,
so like I get, if you're exhausted with these fucking people, yeah. It's that we've all had this experience with the type of person who makes these exhausting circular arguments. And like, I feel like now more than ever, conservatism has really been in this circular argument where you just can't reason with them. They were so quick to say, let us all take hydroxychloroquine. And we were like, hey, there's no science behind that. Hey, maybe we should get some science or any sort of medical information to support that. But they're like, no, we need to buy hydroxychloroquine. It's fantastic Trump's taking it, and it's fantastic that he's stockpiling all this hydroxychloroquine. Meanwhile, a vaccine developed by reputable companies, specifically for the applied scientific purpose, not malaria, but in fact, actually COVID-19, comes out. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, it's not safe. Oh, where's the science behind that? Oh, I don't know enough about this. Oh, I don't want to do it. Where was this for hydroxychloroquine? Where was this skepticism when Trump was pimping that 3 weeks into an outbreak as the miracle cure? I get why people are frustrated. I really do.
A lot of them I just have said, I'm over talking about it with you. I'm done. You're gonna make your own choice. I'm gonna make mine. We have to work together. Good luck.
And that's it. It's not that I don't care. Obviously, and this is why I earnestly was sitting here going like, so like, what's the answer then? Because I'm not willing, in the same way that I'm not willing to accept let the planet die, as an answer to global warming. Let them, being a pesky lib lefty, whatever. Let them die is just usually not a convenient answer for me. I don't like that one. It's usually really unpalatable to me. I want them to get the shot. That's why I'm like, let them have their pride, and I'll give them their pride and $100. I want them to live and vote against me and be a pain in the ass against me in every single election and hate my lifestyle and fight hard to keep marijuana illegal in a losing battle. And one day I'll beat them, and I want them to live to see the day where I'm smoking weed in their face. Like, I want them to live, though. I earnestly, deeply want them to live so I can beat their asses.
Well, that's something that you and Sean Hannity and Mitch McConnell may agree on, as it seems, is that, they have decided that they don't want all their voters to die when Democrats aren't dying. So you may have found common ground.
Have they though? I think that so we'll have to. This will be the end of seg one here, but I think this is a good place to take it, right? So this week we had Fox News is an interesting place, right? Like we've sort of talked about Michael Brandon Doherty's National Review article. I'll read a little. I'll take a look and see if there's anything I want to read specifically. It's lengthy. It's well argued. It's a bad argument, but he does. I mean, Doherty's a hell of a writer. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. Hell of a writer. Okay, thinker. Got wrong on this. Like actually wrong on the fundamental argument here, but. Hannity's been very interesting, and sort of Fox News this week serves as an interesting rebuttal to Doherty in this sense. If Fox News wasn't to blame for the Republican base and the Trump base being so anti-vax, you would not be seeing this sudden changing in messaging on vaccines and whether or not they are good in this internecine war between Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity. The very presence of an internecine war belies the fact that Fox News is a place where anti-vax opinions get equal footing at absolute minimum with pro-vax opinions. But I think all of us who sort of are loosely familiar with Fox News know that pretty much most pro-vaccine positions, like when Steve Doocy was briefly pro-vax, that got met with hostility. Like the pro-vax position on Fox News is underrepresented by a massive margin in relation with reality, but even in a fair and balanced way, the anti-vax position, it has more than the fair side of the balance.
I think you kind of have to understand the difference between the people running Fox News and the Mitch McConnell mindset. Fox News, they're going to make sure that taxes never go up and businesses aren't regulated, and that's beginning and end what they care about. But Mitch McConnell has realized that he's killing off his own voters and not killing off Democrats, and that's going to be a problem later. But they can't exactly come out and say, yeah, we've been lying to you for a year and a half while people are dying. So they have to walk this politically delicate balance of, maybe you should go talk to your doctor because I might lose the Senate if you don't, but I can't tell you that I've been lying to you.
It's also, I mean, Fox's primary demographic being people over the age of 60 or at least on the older age of the spectrum. And Mitch McConnell in particular, being like, Mitch McConnell has lived with a disability for most of his life because he had polio. Like like most of these people lived through the polio outbreak, and for them to be so anti-vax, like the anti-vax sentiment was like a crystal energy granola lefty thing for many years, or a very hyper orthodox, or like a super evangelical thing. It was like so small prior to RFK and what the hell is the British doctor's name? He's one of the worst humans to ever exist. With the trying the anti-vax autism stuff.
Yes.
it exploded the anti-vax mindset.
People also vastly overstate how complicated these vaccines are. Like, and also, I mean, like what you're getting to with McConnell and stuff, I think is almost worse than anti-vaxism. It's vax ambivalence. It's like the Pontius Pilate response to, here we have Jesus, here we have Barabbas, you have the vaccines, you have the anti-vaccines. I'm washing my hands of this. You make your choice. When a guy like Mitch McConnell knows that the polio vaccine was developed in the middle of the last century. They didn't have computers. The labs that they made the polio vaccines in were not space age labs. You could go to any developing country in the world and see a lab of similar like scientific levels as what they made and successfully distributed and defeated fucking polio with in the 20th century. Like, they know better. They know that's what. That's also what it makes me so angry about it.
I don't think anybody's accused Mitch McConnell of being terribly moral any time in the last 20 years, have they? I mean, he's really just being true to character.
That's the damn truth.
Yeah.
So it's. I mean, what was interesting though about the Fox thing for me, as we're kind of finishing this seg, is that it seemed like there was an actual debate in-house about we need to start actually pushing this vaccine thing. And at the end of the week here, it seems like they've already started to run away from that. Having Hannity, the primetime commentary guy, flirt around with the anti-vax or the pro-vaccine stuff was clearly a test balloon. And the other thing that I noticed here is Tucker Carlson this week established that he is bigger than Sean, and that Sean is not the top dog at Fox News anymore. And what Tucker thinks is what Fox thinks. And how much of that is an interplay between the network and Tucker is an interesting convo, of course. But the person who seems to be the odd man out right now seems to be Sean Hannity, and he's a big loser coming out of this week.
Didn't Sean Hannity, like when Trump went, Fox is the radical left and the meat press that's against you. And Trump went to, what was his name? He's now touring with a different talking head. And I think that kind of creates a split between like the right and Hannity. Just, what I've picked up. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I don't know the fallout from the Michael Cohen stuff, too. You remember Hannity was one of Cohen's clients, so I don't know. There might be some, like, super backstage stuff that we're not privy to that might be falling out between Trump and Hannity specifically after Cohen. Remember, Cohen was, like, one of the... Cohen had, like, 4 clients, and Hannity was one of them. So, like there, there might be legal stuff that is mucking things up here, too.
It also might be OAN and Newsmax are occupying a much more radical lane. So Fox may have been trying to trying to find a different lane, and it just didn't work for them. Like they weren't able to go with a more moderate